internet. It's time once again for gaming with Max on Puppet. That's me. As you can see, today we're going to continue my Dungeons & Dragons series talking about the Dungeon Master's Guide. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the art this time. I've already blabbered on enough about that. You're probably bored with how much I love the art. But let's just take a look at this cover for a second, because it's there, and, we should talk about it since I've been spending so much time talking about the art. I like this one. I think it's appropriate for a Dungeon Master's Guide. It's not maybe as iconic as I would have liked, but, I have yet to really see a Dungeon Master's Guide that actually nails it, other than the 3rd edition DMG, which kept with that whole theme of tomes, and so therefore it fit. But this one's, I think it's better than the Player's Handbook cover. I like it. It's got that lich on it. It's pretty evil looking. It, this could be the master villain behind an entire campaign, and therefore I think it's appropriate for Dungeon Master's Guide. I like this cover a lot. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Let's move on from there. Like the Player's Handbook, I'm probably not going to open this up a whole lot, or at all. But I'm just going to talk about what's inside. You can go down to your friendly local game store and flip through it if you want to see. Again, there's some new artwork in this one, and it is incredibly awesome. I love the artwork, but that's all I'm going to have to say about the artwork. So, let's get into the book itself. Like the Player's Handbook, this one is laid out really well. It's very professional looking. The materials are very high quality. It reads pretty smoothly. Unlike the Player's Handbook, I haven't read this one from cover to cover, every last word. I've mostly just skimmed through it. But that's because I just got it for Christmas. So, guys, give me a break. I don't spend my whole time doing nothing but reading these books, as much as I might want to. So, anyway, it's well laid out. It reads very well. The sections make sense. The order they go in makes sense. It's easy to find one section to another. Most of the stuff in it is easy to find. There's a couple things I wish were in different places, but mostly it makes sense. For example, something I wish was in a different place. There are in here rules for magic items, and there are also in here rules for making your own magic items. But they're not, however, in the same section, which doesn't make sense to me. I kind of wish they were in the same section. That would make way more sense to me. So anyway, let's talk about, the book is split up into 3 different parts. And those parts are, I don't remember the exact names of them, but the first part is all about the world. They list it as the master, so like this one is the master of the world. You're the master of your game world, and that's the important part to remember here. It's your game world. Whether you're using a pre-generated game setting like Forgotten Realms or Dragonlance, it's still your campaign world, and don't let anybody tell you that because Book A mentioned Item D was owned by Person C, let that stop you from putting Item D in Person F's hands. Like, it's your campaign world. Do whatever you want. Right? Ignore events that happen in books, change events that happen in books, add new events that didn't happen in books. It's your game world. Do whatever you want. And it talks about that in the book, and I like that a lot. I like that it does that because I've had plenty of players over the years tell me that I can't do certain things because it was in a particular novel, and I have news for them. It's my world. And now it's written down in a book, and I can point to them and go, heh heh, you can't tell me that. Not that I let them tell me that anyway, but I'm just saying. And it also talks about creating your own game world. It talks about the gods in the game world and how they interact with the people in your world, and it talks about how to create kingdoms and how to create settlements and towns and cities, and there's some, like a good Dungeon Master's Guide should, this book has tons and tons of charts in it, and so it's really awesome. There's actually a section in here, if you want to or need to on the fly, you can roll up a whole random settlement. It's pretty cool. I like it a lot. You can even roll up random environments. I think there's a couple of really cool tables in the world section. So that's the first section of the book. The second section of the book is Master of Adventures, and it talks about how to create your own adventures. This is probably the section I skipped over the most, so I don't really have a lot to say about it, but it does have some cool stuff in there on how to create your own adventure, how to stock it with monsters. It does have some neat stuff in there like deciding who created the dungeon in the first place. If your dungeon was created by, say, Kuatoa, it's going to look a whole lot different than if your dungeon was created by, say, a dragon. Or it's the remains of an ancient castle built by the elves many, many years ago. Those three places would all look very differently and probably be stocked with different monsters. And it talks about that, and I think it's really good. It does a lot of good discussion about dungeon ecology, and I think that's great. This section also has the magic items section. Like I said before, I really wish the rules for creating magic items were in here. That would make more sense to me if they were here, but I understand why they didn't put them here, because the next section is all about the rules. The next section is Master of the Rules. It starts off talking about social rules, so like things about how you all interact around the table. How do you determine what's in character as opposed to what's said out of character? Is that even important? If it is important, you got to determine how you say I'm out of character, and that's important stuff. You got to figure that out, and it talks about how to do that. There's some good stuff in there, good advice on how to do that in here. This section also has some really cool optional rules for you to use. It's got things like hero points, which if you decide to use them, they allow you to roll an additional d6 when you're making a die roll. The heroes can spend those. There's there's some alternate initiative rules. There's some other kinds of points you can give your players, like plot points, which were kind of similar to the way Fate points do in Fate, which is a role-playing game I haven't covered yet, but will be soon, because it's awesome. But basically, they let you add plot elements as a player, so they can do things like make a situation more complicated, or change the direction of a scene by, say, adding a contact that they didn't have before, or something like that. It's pretty neat. I like that idea. And it's just got like cool optional rules like that. It's also got rules on how to make your own monsters and make your own magic items, which I guess is why that part is here, because it's about the rules, and that makes sense. I wish it was with magic items, as I said many times already, but that's just my personal opinion. I almost forgot. Back in the second section of the book, there's a really cool section on how to create villains for your campaign. Not just the head honcho villain like this Lich guy here that'll be in charge of the whole bad guys, but, little bad guys. Like, you can create the guy in charge of the dungeon you're going through, or, maybe the evil town overlord that runs the town that you're in that you have to get out of town, or stuff like that. It talks about how to make compelling, interesting villains that your party will be talking about for years on end. And I think that's really cool. What else? One of my favorite parts is in the very back of the book. Just like in the old first edition Dungeon Master's Guide, there's a section in the back of the book for rolling up random dungeons. Now, I don't really recommend doing that necessarily, but it's just a ton of fun, and I love the fact that they included it in here. It just throws me all the way back to first edition. I used to roll those random dungeon charts a lot just to see what the hell I would come up with, and it's just a whole ton of fun, and I may do the same thing with this, because I love that idea. And like I said, there's tons and tons of random charts throughout this whole thing. You can roll up random villains, random dungeons, random settlements. You could pretty much create an entirely random campaign if you wanted to. All you have to do is decide on the gods that you want. There's not really any random god charts. But otherwise, you could make an entirely random campaign, which could be kind of fun and cool. There's some other interesting alternate rules in the rules section while I'm talking about that. There's some cool stuff for, like, advanced technology. So, like, if you wanted to make your guys in a Renaissance era campaign, or maybe a steampunk type of story, there's rules for that. If you want to make it a science fiction-y story, there's rules for that. Or there's rules for throwing in those kinds of things into a standard D&D game, so that you can have, like, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, where your heroes discover an alien spaceship, and how that would work in a standard D&D game. So overall, I think it's a really great book. It's got a lot of awesome stuff in there if you're a DM. It's great whether you're a novice DM or an expert DM. There's a ton of really great advice in there. It's just awesome. I love it. I'm going to definitely read it in more detail, but overall, I really love it, and I highly recommend it for all the DMs out there. I think that's really all I have to say about this book. Probably the shortest review I've given so far. Next week, I will be doing my review of the Monster Manual and filling out this whole Dungeons and Dragons thing. And that should pretty much cover it. But in the meantime, I recommend it. Like the Player's Handbook, this one is $50. Pick it up at your local game store, or pick it up online. You can get it slightly cheaper at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And that's it. Until next time, keep playing games. Bye!